Okay, be honest. How many times have you said to yourself, this year, I'm going to write that novel, and then November rolls around and you still haven't started it? It's not that you don't want to write, but every time you go and sit down and try to start, the whole thing just feels too big, too complicated, too overwhelming. You've got this story burning in your heart, begging to be written, but you just don't know where to begin. And all the writing advice is just pulling you in a million different directions, and it's making things worse. If any of that sounds familiar to you, this is your sign. It's time to begin. For real this time. Today I'm doing something special, something that I usually never do, and I'm sharing with you one of my favorite live trainings of all time. It's the beginner's guide to writing a novel, even if you've never written anything before. This session is a complete crash course in how to go from a rough idea that you don't really know what to do with to a finished story that you feel proud of, without any of the overwhelm. In this training, you will learn my simple 3-step recipe to kickstart your story, how to build characters that your readers fall in love with, and how to craft a plot that practically writes itself. So if you're ready to stop overthinking and start writing, grab your notebook, because this is the blueprint that every first-time novelist or seasoned novelist needs to write a story that matters. Let's dive in. Part 1, your simple 3-step recipe to kickstart the process of writing a story that matters. So this is a process that you may have seen me use in some of my brainstorming videos, but I want to go deeper into it this time in this training. If you're feeling a little overwhelmed and you've just started out on your writing journey and you feel like you're being pulled in many different directions as you try to learn about the writing process and you're not sure where to begin, don't worry. Every writer feels like this at the start. And that's why right now we're going to break down this simple 3-step recipe to kickstart the process of writing a story that matters. I like to call it the WWW rule. And you've probably heard me talk about this before. It's the who, the what, and the why. Okay, so this can also be looked at as the theme. The why is the theme, the who is the characters, and the what is the plot. So really simple, these are the 3 pillars to your story. And it's really all you need to think about at the beginning, okay? And it's okay if you don't have a clear vision for what each of these things are right away. Some ideas will develop and evolve and grow as you continue on the writing journey of this story, okay? So for now, I just want you to make a rough sketch of your premise, your characters, and the big idea by answering a few questions. These are the 3 important questions. The most important question, literally, if I could only give you these 3 prompts to ever use, and you know how much I love prompts and questions, so this is saying a lot, but if I could only give you 3 questions to ask yourself, I guess there's more than 3 here. There's probably a few more than 3. This would be it. First, why do you want to write this story? Why does it matter to you? What are the big ideas that you want to share through this story? Who do you want to tell a story about? What inner conflicts is your character dealing with? What are their desires, fears, and misbeliefs? How have their past experiences shaped them into the person they are today? What journey are you going to take your characters on? How will they be forced outside their comfort zone and ultimately change as a result of their journey? So as you can see, just answering these questions, and yes, there are more than 3, there's probably like 7 or more, but just answering these questions will help you to solidify the who, the what, and the why. And that's really all your story is. It can literally be that simple. And if you're more of a pantser or discovery writer, this might even be enough for you to start drafting with and go back and refine things later. Okay, so I want to show you all throughout this training what this looks like so you can better visualize these principles in action. So to better understand this WWW story method, I want to show you how I plotted my latest novel, The Other World, using this same method. This is a cozy, contemporary, kind of a romance, kind of a coming of age story. If you've read it, comment in the chat right now and tell me. I know some of you probably have, some of you might not have, but regardless, you're going to be able to follow this example here today, because I want to give you sort of a behind the scenes look at how I use these methods to write this book and to outline it and plan it. So we're going to start with a vague concept and then build upon it step by step throughout this training using these storytelling principles. And I want you to see what these strategies in action look like and how you can creatively break the rules Once you know them, yes, break the rules. It's okay. It's okay to break the rules as long as you understand why the rule is there. Okay, so first let's look at what ingredients will go into our recipe. Now, I like to think of this stage of the process like grocery shopping. This is the fun part. So you're looking for only the best quality ingredients to include in your story, ingredients that personally get you excited to sit down and write every day. That's what makes them quality ingredients. Do not base it off what other people want or industry expectations or what seems hot in the market right now. None of that. Just base it off what you personally get excited about, okay? Because this story has to be something you love. It has to be a labor of love, or else you won't feel motivated to get up every day and commit time to it. So when I first had the idea for the premise of The Otherworld, I knew there were a few must-have ingredients that would make it into this story. And here are some of the ingredients. If I were to make these grocery lists of ingredients, it might look something like this. So the main story ingredients, I knew I wanted it to be a cozy contemporary romance with lots of family drama, a love triangle. Yes, because I personally really like love triangles when they're done well. I know they've been stigmatized sometimes in the publishing world, but I personally like them when they're done well. 90s nostalgia. She lives in a lighthouse. He's a bush pilot. Moody, rainy Pacific Northwest vibes, buried family secrets, and a happily ever after ending. Of course, a book of mine is always going to have a happily ever after ending at some point. Then the romance ingredients. I knew I wanted them to be stranded together for some period of time. I wanted the meet cute to be that one saves the other's life. I wanted forbidden love, age gap, and the love triangle, of course, featuring brothers. And what forces them apart, I wanted some sort of dark secret to be revealed, or some secret in general. And then for the character ingredients, main female character has lived in a lighthouse on a remote island her whole life. Her father is super protective, lightkeeper, and the only person she's ever known. Love interest is a bush pilot who crashes his plane near the lighthouse. His younger brother is searching for him and meets the girl through a cell phone washed up on her beach. This is basically like all I had. I had actually less than this when I first started outlining and planning this book. And that's what I mean by your ideas can be vague. They can be messy. You can have no idea how they're going to fit together. And that's okay, because that's where the creative brainstorming process takes over. So for anybody who is like, I kind of know what I want to write about, but I'm not sure how it's all going to fit together, I urge you to gather as many ingredients ahead of time as possible, because these lists of ingredients are going to help so much when it comes time to brainstorm and put all of this together into a delicious recipe that is your story. So using these ingredients, I was able to take this and turn it into the plot. Growing up in a lighthouse on a remote island, Orca Monroe has lived isolated from the world until one day when she finds a cell phone washed up on the beach. That's how she meets Jack Stevenson, a young man whose older brother Adam has gone missing after crashing his seaplane off the coast. While her father is away, Orca searches her island for the missing pilot, and when she finds him, she nurses him back to health. Stranded together on the island for several days, Orca and Adam begin to fall for each other. But with the 10-year age gap between them and her father's determination to keep Orca protected from outsiders, Adam knows they can never be together. Resigned to give Orca up, Adam returns to the mainland, but Jack refuses to leave her trapped at the lighthouse. Blind to the fact that his brother is in love with her, Jack offers to show Orca the world she's always dreamed of. But when she leaves her island for the first time, Orca begins to realize that the mainland may hold more dark secrets than she ever imagined, and the two brothers she helped bring back together may be the very people she tears apart. So obviously this doesn't show us the whole plot, but it gives us that irresistible premise. This is the premise that made me want to write the book. So that's the what. Now, the why, the themes. Reflecting upon this story, I have come up with the themes being not limited to this, but definitely including, you never know how much your small, seemingly insignificant decisions impact others and the world around you. Sometimes love means letting go and letting the person you love come back to you on their own, and forgiveness is the only way to truly set yourself free. So those are just some of the ideas that spring to mind when I look at the themes of The Otherworld. But there are probably others as well that other readers can get out of it. That's the beautiful thing about storytelling is once you put it out there and you release it to the world and readers start having their own experience with this story, they're going to get something different out of it. Every single individual is going to get something different out of it. Okay, and then finally we have who, the characters. So we have Orca, Adam, and Jack. Those were the three main characters that I knew I was going to be working with, and this is like just the rough sketch of all I knew about them from the start. First, Orca is a free-spirited young woman who has spent her whole life isolated from the outside world. She's sheltered and innocent, but much stronger than she believes herself to be. An old soul, Orca is kind but strong, gentle but courageous, and wears her heart on her sleeve. She's a romantic with sand in her hair, seashells in her pockets, and a cute dog that never leaves her side. Adam Stevenson is the older, wiser, more sensible of the two Stevenson brothers. He's a deep thinker and a truth seeker who tends to put the needs of others before his own. He's hardworking and caring, self-critical and perfectionistic, and a problem solver who is constantly torn between logic and emotion. And then finally, Jack is adventurous and fun-loving, fiery and short-tempered, afraid of missing out, and restless for more of everything. When he falls in love, he falls head over heels, and when he falls for Orca, he has no clue that he's about to get caught in an impossible conflict with his brother and the girl of his dreams. This is all I knew about the characters from the start. These really brief sketches, and that is enough to go on. But if you want to take it that one step further, later on, we're going to look at how to expand a character into something a little more layered and vivid and driven by their fear-based goals and internal conflict, which we're going to look at in a few minutes. But first, just quickly seeing these principles in action. This is what I mean by the what, the why, and the who. It can be this brief, this simple. It can even be more short and to the point than this. But let's move on to part 2. Crafting a layered, compelling, and conflicted characters that your reader will sympathize with. For now, we're just going to look at the most important things, the vital few things. So the 3 key ingredients to relatable characters to start: fatal flaws, internal conflict, and clear goals. These are so vital because this is what connects your reader to your character, these 3 things. This is what gives us a sense of importance and a sense of momentum that carries us through the story. So first, fatal flaws. A fatal flaw is a misbelief that the character has about the world or about themselves, which keeps them from finding true happiness. That's really all it is. You don't have to overcomplicate it. That's what a fatal flaw is. Second, internal conflict. Your character wants something, but they're also afraid of something. And this fear is constantly stopping them from getting what they want. That creates conflict because those 2 things are constantly clashing in their mind and creating this sort of combustible energy in them that keeps them from achieving true satisfaction. And finally, clear goals, which are a result of these first 2 things, okay? The third thing is a result of the first 2, and this is the momentum of your story, that driving force that makes your protagonist an active character in their life, not just a punching bag for the plot. Because see, if you don't have a fatal flaw or internal conflict for your character, then they can't really have a clear goal, can they? If their clear goal is based purely on something the plot needs them to do, then it's not really driven by internal conflict, is it? Now, you can have both. You can have internal conflict and fatal flaws, and then the plot comes in or some external force comes in, shoves them outside their comfort zone, and forces them to contend with what's in front of them now. And that makes it even more juicy and layered because they have this internal conflict already set up. But you'll be amazed by how once you create this internal conflict for your character, you have momentum for your story. And that's why it's so important to get inside your character's mind, okay? Now, readers, as I always like to say, they have no reason to care about your protagonist's favorite weather or food or time of day or even their job and interests, because these things are only relatable to some people, right? But you want anyone to be able to pick up your book and relate to your protagonist immediately. So then what is that one thing that every person on the planet can relate to? Internal conflict, correct. Also known as desire clashing with fear, like I just said. And every single person deals with this struggle. You have internal conflict. I have internal conflict. There's something we want, something we desire in life. And then there's also that little voice in the back of your head, holding you back. And that voice is fear, limiting beliefs, ideas that you have learned over time and decided to trust and decided that these things are true about life and about me. And that's just part of the human condition, which means if you want your characters to seem human, they need to experience this internal conflict. Okay. Now, like I said, you can go even deeper with your characters and use my ultimate character profile to flesh out your characters, take them to that next level. And this, in my opinion, is the only character guide you'll ever need. If you want to dive deeper into the character creation process, I recommend checking out my 2-part live training I did on advanced character creation, which is also linked in the resource kit. So you can find these 2 things and dive even deeper into character creation. So let's look at these strategies in action and better understand them by going back to the other world for a minute. So I'm going to give you behind the scenes look at my process again here. Now, so far, as we saw in the first part, we only made rough sketches of the plot, the themes, and the characters, the who, the what, the why. Very brief descriptions. We took a list of random character traits and began to scratch the surface of who these characters are based on those ingredients. Okay, so these were just character traits that I started to assign these characters and try to figure out, okay, like who are they on the surface? Because now we're going to dive beneath the surface and see how they became this person. Okay, there's the what, and then there's the how. And the how is how we dig deeper into where this person came from, what shaped them into the person they are today. So filling out the main character profile, the ultimate character profile, which this is something that I shared in my previous 2-part live training, which I mentioned on advanced character creation. I go into all the characters from the other world in that training. But in this one, we're just going to look at Orca's character profile for the sake of time. So I have some quick descriptions of her physical appearance and the role she plays in the story, and then her personality type. Again, this is like sort of the on the surface stuff, right? But we're going to go deeper beneath the surface. So we have, we know that she's sweet and idealistic and emotional, innocent, curious, introverted. She's warm-hearted, friendly, generous, self-sacrificing, but can also be overly trusting, naive, and people-pleasing. So good balance of positive and negative traits that all come from sort of the same root. Now we're going to dig deeper into her beliefs. So first, what is her greatest fear? That she'll miss out on everything that life has to offer because she lives isolated on her island. And then we know that that's kind of like the main conflict of the story. So that has to come into her beliefs frontmost, like the first and foremost thing is this conflict. Thanks to her father keeping her away from the other world, Orca is afraid that she won't be able to face the dangers of the mainland. She feels trapped by her father, but she's also afraid of hurting him. So she kind of has this paradox and conflict. What is her misbelief? That her father is right and she's not strong enough to handle the harsh realities of the other world. So as you can see with this one thing here, we took it to another level. It could have just began and ended with, I want to go to the other world. My father won't let me. I'm, angry and upset about that, or I'm frustrated about that. And there the conflict begins and ends. But if we take it beyond behavior and go down another level below the surface to the beliefs, which is what's underneath the surface, it's really that she's afraid her father is right and she's not strong enough to handle the harsh realities of the real world, which automatically makes it a little bit more layered, a little bit more complex. So what happened in this character's past to make them believe this lie? All her life, her father has kept her safe from harm and told her how delicate and precious she is, how she's safer on the island and doesn't belong in the other world. What does she most often criticize others for? Being cruel or unkind. What is her love language? Acts of service, quality time, again, behavior stuff. And then how does she respond to emotional pain, which is important to know about your characters. So Orca is very open-hearted and shares her feelings with people she trusts, but she also hates to burden others with her problems and keeps some things to herself. Inner motivation needs love and connection with others to experience everything that life has to offer, but not at the expense of her relationship with her father. So again, we have this clash and this paradox of,
an impossible choice, right? An impossible conflict of like, I want this thing, but I can't have it because something is getting in the way. And that something can't just be a physical object. It has to be deeper than that. It has to be in your character's belief system, okay? Whether it's their ultimate fatal flaw or something else. Looking at this, we know her most important character traits, her internal conflict, and her fatal flaw. We've also developed some of her hobbies, skills, and interests, but we need more than that to create a character who is an active participant in the story, not just a punching bag for the plot, because we could throw anything at this character, right? And a story would unfold, but we want it to be driven by Orca's actions. We want her to be an active participant, right? So as we just explored previously, the best way to make your character active is to give them clear goals, something that they're actively pursuing throughout the story. So let's continue filling out this character profile, moving on to the next section, which is about character goals. So remember what I said about those three important things, the fatal flaw, the internal conflict, and the clear goals. The goals are driven by the conflict. That's why it's so important to set up the conflict first. And then we can figure out, okay, based on all this conflict, what sort of momentum is going to come out of that? What sort of goal is my character going to be actively pursuing? And to do that, to figure that out, we can ask ourselves a few more questions, which is part of the character profile again. First, how is Orca dissatisfied with her life? Obviously, it's a little dissatisfying and boring to live in a lighthouse on an island completely isolated from the rest of the world, and that's what Orca's been doing for the past 18 years. What does Orca believe will bring her true happiness or contentment? To go to the mainland and see what the real world is like. She feels like she's missing out on life, but most importantly, relationships and connection with others. What definitive step could she take to turn her dream into a reality? She could ask her father to take her to the mainland next time he goes, but she's done this before and he always says no. He always tells her that she's safer here on the island and that the world is a dangerous place and she doesn't belong there. How has Orca's fear kept her from taking this action already? Although Orca is technically forbidden from going to the mainland, she's not a helpless victim of her father. Really, she's afraid of breaking her father's heart by defying him. So again, as you can see with this last question, I tried to take it a little bit deeper because I didn't want it to be that Orca was just a total victim of circumstance. Like, well, it's impossible because I'm literally stranded on the island and my dad won't let me leave, in case closed. Like, yes, that can create a lot of conflict, but can we take it another step deeper than that? I'm always looking for and asking myself, pushing myself to take it one step further and try to bring just another layer of conflict into the mix to make my characters more active. And that's something that you can do at any point in your story. So finally, last question, how does Orca feel like she can accomplish her goal while still steering clear of the things she's afraid of? When Orca communicates with Jack Stevenson through the phone, it leads her to the opportunity to look for and rescue Adam. It's her first experience with someone from the other world and also a chance for her to prove to her father that she is strong enough to survive in the real world because look, she rescued someone all by herself. So yes, she's naturally a kind and helpful person and wants to help Adam and Jack, but she also has a motive of her own, which is to prove to her father that she's strong enough to handle the darker, harsher realities of life. So weaving in the different layers of conflict here. And you can fill out this questionnaire, which I linked in the resource kit, for any of your characters. But if you don't want to fill out the questionnaire, you just want to briefly sketch out a few things to get a better understanding of where this story is going without filling out entire character profiles, then just ask yourself these three questions. First, what is my protagonist's fatal flaw or misbelief? And how has it shaped them into the person they are today? What is it my character desires, and how is their fear constantly stopping them from achieving true happiness? And finally, what active goal is my protagonist pursuing and why? How does this goal set them on the path of their transformative journey? Now, a lot of you probably already know the answers to these questions just looking at them, and that's fine too. A lot of times we already know the answers to these questions. We just don't necessarily take the time to figure it out in a tangible way. And figuring it out in a tangible way and writing down your answers, even if you never look at them again, it can really help you to just solidify what is this conflict exactly, and better understanding it for your own sake, because your story will greatly benefit from knowing ahead of time.
Are you feeling a NaNoWriMo shaped hole in your life this year? If so, you're not alone. So many writers are disappointed that NaNoWriMo is no longer happening because we all loved the challenge, we loved the community, we loved the accountability. But what if I told you that something better is happening instead? This November, Pro Writing Aid is launching Novel November, a 30-day writing challenge designed to help writers turn their blank pages into a beautiful finished novel. The goal is to write 50,000 words in 30 days, whether you are finishing a novel or starting a new draft, or you are writing a complete story during that time. You choose your goal, and it is 100% free to join this challenge. There will be daily writing sprints, live Q&As, and expert-hosted webinars to keep you motivated and supported. I am thrilled and honored to be included in the lineup of these amazing voices in the publishing world, and so excited to be a part of this challenge with you. I'm going to be doing a few Q&As live with you guys, as well as a few writing sprints, and here on my channel I'm going to be doing live writing sprints, like live Write With Me writing sessions every week. We'll be joined by dozens of other best-selling authors and writing experts sharing their strategies to help you finish your draft. So if you're ready to challenge yourself this November and write the book of your dreams, click the link below this video to sign up for Novel November. Again, it's 100% free to join. Anyone can join, and I think you're going to love this challenge. I know I am very excited to start writing in November. Let's get back into the live training.
Let's move on to part 3, which is creating a strong plot outline using the character-based 3-act story structure. Now, don't get overwhelmed when I say this. I know that some of you might be discovery writers or pantsers, or you're just starting out on this journey and you've never written a novel before, and the thought of story structure just makes your head want to explode because you're like, I'm just trying to sort out my characters and my conflict and my basic premise. I cannot handle a whole story structure right now, but it's okay. I'm not going to hit you with the whole story structure. I'm just going to touch on the most important things. Remember, first and foremost, that memorable stories are all about character change. That's what makes us fall in love with a story and never forget it. And that's why I'm going to share with you a character-based 3-act story structure. So unlike other story structures, such as The Hero's Journey or Save the Cat, this storytelling method is based on psychologically proven principles so that our primary focus is always on the characters and why what's happening matters to them. So outlining your story before you start writing will not only strengthen your characters, your plot, and your themes, it will also be a tremendous help during the editing process because you never have to do a big rewrite. That's what I love about it so much. And I know that plotting and outlining can sound really overwhelming, especially if you're used to flying by the seat of your pants. And I'm a hardcore plotter myself, but I firmly believe that every writer is different and you need to discover your own unique process and what works for you. But here's the cool thing. You can plot as little or as much as you want to. You don't have to plot intensely to write a good book. That is a total myth, not true. I know plenty of writers who are extremely gifted, talented writers who can write a absolute masterpiece without ever making a single note. And if that's you, that's awesome. But if you are just starting out on this journey and you're not sure what direction to take, having an outline ahead of time can be, even if it's a really simple, really basic, really brief, can be so helpful. And I just want to say that another myth is that your outline has to be something that you create once and then you can never deviate from it, and you are stuck in kind of the box of your outline. Not true. Your outline should serve you, not the other way around. I used to be a pantser for this reason. I hated the idea of having to write an outline and then sort of the thrill was gone because I felt like I already wrote the story. And I felt like I trapped myself inside a box that I wouldn't be able to escape. And this is a common misconception that many writers have towards story structure. But your story's outline should not limit you. It should free you to be more creative and to try new things because you can see your whole story from that 1,000-foot view. A few more reasons why I love this story structure and I use it for all my books. Even if I'm not filling out the bullet points of every single story beat, I intrinsically gravitate towards using this story structure again and again because of these reasons. First and foremost, it's tried and true. Millions of successful best-selling history-making stories have used this story structure, including timeless classics like Pride and Prejudice, A Christmas Carol, Romeo and Juliet, To Kill a Mockingbird, to name a few. 2 is all about the protagonist's internal journey. Okay, so most story structures focus too much on the external events, the plot, right? The action, without digging deep into why these story beats matter to the characters. And this is the biggest reason why I love this story structure, because it flows perfectly with the external conflict. But at every story beat, we are unearthing the reason why everything that's happening matters to the characters. Number 3, it's bendable. Okay, just like I said before, once you know the rules, you can break them. Once you understand the science behind each story beat, you can tailor this structure to suit your specific story's needs. And you don't need the inciting incident to happen exactly 15 pages in, or the plot twist to unfold at the 50% mark exactly. You know, a lot of these story structures, when you first read about them, they can seem very rigid and unyielding. And I've just never liked that. I've never vibed with that. And I've never seen that to be absolute truth in stories that I've loved. You know, sometimes a plot point will, or a plot twist will happen not at the 50% mark, and it works. It's great. It's wonderful. So you can adjust this story structure to serve your unique story, and it will hold up. Number 4 is that it's backed by brain science. Okay, so at every story beat, I like to test the principles against proven rules of psychology to make sure we're still stimulating our reader's curiosity. And finally, it works with every genre. So whether you're writing a cozy small town rom-com or an epic space opera, this story structure transcends the limitations of genre expectations and will bring your story to life in a way that resonates with the human heart, no matter how big or small the scope of your fictional world. Okay, so as I keep emphasizing, story structure is all about character transformation. And every compelling character arc follows a journey of change. Now, usually the flow goes something like this. The main character is internally conflicted. They desire something and their fear is standing in their way. Then something happens to push them outside their comfort zone and set them on the path of their journey, where they will encounter obstacles and plot twists as they pursue their misbelief-based goal. Eventually, disaster strikes, leaving your character hopeless and confronting their greatest fear. They must overcome their fear and crush their misbelief in order to continue to the climax and face their biggest challenge yet, therefore proving their transformation. Now, if you're looking at this and you're like, Abby, did you just read my notes when I wasn't looking? How did you know my story is going to unfold like this? Don't worry, I did not break into your computer. I did not read your notes. But if this paragraph feels familiar, if this story structure feels familiar, that's a great sign, because that means you have a character-driven, conflict-ridden story simmering to life in your imagination. And all you need now is that vehicle to deliver your story to your readers in an unput-downable way. Now, it can be as simple as this. You could literally copy and paste this description and come up with your basic structure for your story, knowing how your characters are going to get from point A to point B all the way to point Z in your story by understanding the flow of their journey. And it can be one paragraph. Can literally be that simple. You don't have to intensely outline. But if you want to go deeper into the 3-act story structure and break it down bullet point or story beat by story beat, here's a glance at what the 3-act story structure looks like. We have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, obviously, which I also like to call the setup, the conflict, and the resolution. You might see it called that in certain places. In Act 1, you have the hook, the inciting incident, the impossible choice, and the first plot point. In Act 2, you have sort of a reaction, plot twist, action is kind of the flow of Act 2. And then Act 3 builds into the climax. So you have maybe a supposed victory, then you have disaster, dark moment, or moment of temptation. The aha moment where your character realizes that their misbelief has been all wrong, the climactic confrontation, and then the resolution. So it's really quite simple when you look at it sort of from this 1,000-foot view, and you can literally make it this simple. You could take these bullet points and fill out just one line for each bullet point and just go with that, or you can expand upon it. Now, if you want to dive deeper into each story beat of the 3-act story structure, I do recommend watching my extensive 2-part live training on plotting a novel start to finish. In that training, I go into each story beat in depth with examples and prompts. Question prompts for each one. So if you're like, oh, this sounds really cool, I want to outline more intensely, I want to really get a really rich understanding of how the layers of conflict are going to unfold at every moment of my story, then I highly recommend checking out that training because I think you would love it. And that's available in the archive vault, which is linked in the resource kit. As I keep emphasizing, it's important to find a system that works for you. So every writer is different. Some will need to be super organized and write tons of outlines in order to feel fully immersed in the story, and others will only need a few vague ideas to start writing the first draft. So don't compare yourself to other writers or feel like you're not doing it right just because you're not doing it like someone else. Whatever writing process you naturally gravitate towards is the writing process that's right for you. So listen to your intuition and only do as much plotting as you feel you need to get started with taking your protagonist on that life-changing journey. And finally, the prompts for this section. If you do nothing else, just answer these questions. How is my character's central goal going to force them to go on a journey of change? What obstacles and conflicts are going to arise for my protagonist as they pursue their fear-based goal? And how are the characters going to ultimately transform as a result of their journey? All right, part 4. I know we're going kind of long here, but we still have 2 more parts to quickly cover. Effortlessly weaving meaningful themes into your story and making it matter to you and your readers. This is like the lifeblood, the backbone. Theme is the backbone of an unforgettable story. All right, it's the powerful truth that your character is going to learn as a result of their life-changing journey. This is the big idea that you're personally passionate about and that you want to inspire your readers to ponder more deeply. But how do you weave these ideas into your story in a natural way that doesn't come across sounding sanctimonious or preachy? The aha moment is where this all comes full circle. So how do we create that? First, step 1 is to figure out your story's main theme. So you might have more than one theme for your story, but I'm talking about like the main overarching theme or the big idea that you are the most excited about. I prefer to call this the story's truth. So write that down in as few words as possible. And remember, this will be the realization, the aha moment that your character is going to have at the climax of your story. Okay, so if you haven't figured out what your story's truth is yet, don't worry, you can still do that. Plenty of time to do that. Get a fresh piece of paper or Word document and brain dump your answers to these questions. What change would you like to see in the world? What kinds of ideas, characters do you wish appeared more in books and movies? What is the truth that you want to scream from the rooftops? Just contemplate these questions. Maybe don't even write them down. Maybe just think out loud, go for a walk, talk to yourself. Let your neighbors think you're crazy as you're talking to yourself. It's fine. And figure out what you're really passionate about. What is an idea that not only fuses well with these characters' journeys, but something that will personally compel you to get up every morning and sit down at your computer and write this story, because there's something deeper here. There's something beyond just an entertainment factor. There's some truth, some idea that's important to you that you want to present to your readers. You want your readers to think about. You want them to walk away from this story with new ideas and new questions. What are those new ideas and questions? Step 2, flip this truth upside down and make it a lie. I know this is going to feel nasty and counterproductive. It's going to feel horrible. But I want you to take that theme you just wrote down, the idea you're excited about, the truth that you want to scream from the rooftops, and flip it upside down. What is the exact opposite of this truth? What is the contrasting lie? This is your protagonist's misbelief. So for example, let's say your story's most prominent theme is you are loved and valuable. Then maybe your protagonist's misbelief might be, I am not lovable, which could be rooted in maybe an abandonment or neglectful parents who made this character feel that they would never be good enough to love. Okay, so that's just a quick example, but there's so many ways that you can flip your truth upside down, make it a lie, and then ask yourself, okay, where did this come from? And then ask yourself, how is my character dissatisfied with their life today because they believe this lie so firmly? The real reason we can't get no satisfaction is because we believe a lie about ourselves and about the world. So whether it's a lie of, I won't be happy until I'm rich and famous, or I won't be happy until I find true love, it's all the same, really. Dissatisfaction because of a belief that is simply not true. Now, our mindset is the only thing standing between us and happiness. And that's what your character really wants at the end of the day, to be happy. Okay, that's what it all boils down to. That's what we all want. But we all have different definitions of happiness. And that's why you need to clarify your protagonist's overarching goal throughout the story. Why does it matter to them? Why do they feel like accomplishing this goal will be the only way I can achieve true happiness? Because when you show your reader that connection and we see the clear dots, oh, I see how all this is connected. They came from this. They started believing this. Now their conflict is this. Now they want this to be happy. Now they are pursuing it. That is such a beautiful network of dots to connect that gives your character so many more complex layers of conflict than simply giving them a goal that's thrown at them from the plot and they have no choice but to react to it. See how this is so much more deep and rich and complex and layered and relatable? So good. Okay, so prompts again. If I could describe the heart of my story in one word, what would that one word be? What thoughts, ideas, and discussions do I want this story to spark among my readers? Why do these themes and ideas personally resonate with me? And how can I infuse my own personal experiences into my character's emotional journey? Okay, and it doesn't matter if you've never personally experienced this. Maybe you're writing about a character who's abandoned by their parents at a young age. Now they have trust issues. Maybe that wasn't you. Maybe you weren't abandoned by your parents and you're thinking, oh, well, can I write this realistically? Yes, you can, because your character has some aspect of their emotional struggle that you can relate to. So infuse your own fears and doubts and misbeliefs, perhaps, and conflicts into this character's emotional journey. Write what you know emotionally, and you can handle the rest. Okay, finally, we're arriving at part 5, which is organizing your lifestyle to make time for prioritizing your writing. This is arguably the most difficult part, so hang with me. So all your novel preparation, everything we talked about thus far, all these wonderful ideas that are sparking to life in your head right now will be worthless if you don't actually carve out the time to write your book, okay? Now, oftentimes, the biggest challenge is finding time in our busy schedules to sit down and write. I know that's one of my biggest challenges. And that's why I want to share with you some of my go-to methods for making time to write, which is a process that for me is constantly changing. And I think you'll find that for you as well. It's constantly changing because life is constantly changing. Now, writing can be really tricky to make time for because it doesn't really fall into any strict category of things we make room for, especially if you're not a full-time professional writer, which most of us aren't, I think. I know I'm not even a full-time professional writer, even though I am an author. I do consider that part of my profession. It is not the only thing I do for work. So we have kind of this little graph to visualize this here. We have work, we have fun time, we have learning time, perhaps where some of us are in school or university. And all these things sort of have their own segments of time in our schedules, right? But in a way, writing kind of falls into all three at the same time. It might feel like work. It might also be really fun. And of course, you're learning while you're doing it. But how do we make time for this? First things first is to get your priorities straight. I know it sounds kind of harsh. I don't mean that in a harsh way. I mean, really think about what are your priorities in this season of life. So every season of life brings with it new demands on your time and energy. And in this season of life, you are committing to writing a book, which is no small thing. It's a huge undertaking. So in order to prioritize a challenge like this, you need to say no to other things in order to say yes to writing. Whenever I start embarking on a new season of life, I like to grab a journal and start sorting out my current projects and priorities. So here are a few prompts that I've used that have helped me to do that. First, asking yourself, why does writing this story matter to me in this season of life? What other projects or tasks can I afford to put on pause while I write this book? What would my ideal writing day look like? And what are some practical ways I can rely on support from others to free up some of my time? Looking at your life in seasons will help you so much to get your priorities straight, because this season can be as long as you want it to be. For me, a season is usually like 3 to 4 months of my life, but it might be a month or it might be 6 months, or you're just challenging yourself to write a novel in 1 month. Maybe it's 1 month of life. So in 1 month, in November, could you delegate some tasks? Could you put some other projects on the back burner? Could you be intentional to make time for this book? Because it's not going to take up your whole life. You don't have to reorganize your entire life forever. It's just this one season, okay? And I know some of you might be thinking, but I don't have time to write. There's so many things going on in my life. And I understand that finding time to write amidst a busy schedule, especially if you maybe have kids or a full-time job or other responsibilities, it requires some creativity and unconventional thinking to make time. So here are some practical and outside the box strategies to help you carve out time for your creative work, even if you are super busy. First is to leverage pockets of time. So instead of waiting for large chunks of free time, like hours and hours, try micro writing sessions of 10 to 15 minutes during breaks at work, or while your kids are occupied, or while dinner is cooking. Okay, try to find those little moments of time where you can either brainstorm or write your story. Or consider shifting your schedule slightly. Maybe it's possible to wake up 30 minutes earlier or stay up 30 minutes later than usual. However, you need to shift your schedule around to have that extra quiet time for writing. And again, consider delegating tasks like laundry, grocery shopping, or cleaning to free up your time. You don't always have to be the one to do everything. And I know that that can be really challenging for a lot of us, but really consider what are those things that I maybe don't have to be doing or that somebody else could do just for this 1 month. Maybe use a voice to text app on your phone to write while you're doing something else, like walking the dog or commuting or doing household chores. It's amazing how even if you just have a brainstorming session where you're just talking to yourself, it can be so much more productive if you're actually speaking those words and having a software write them down, like having your phone write it down for you, because later you can go back and look at everything you brainstormed and sort it out and make sense of it. Whereas if you just think about it and you never actually say it or write it down, a lot of times those thoughts go through your mind and then they're gone again. And then you don't have actually like any tangible product from that brainstorm session. So try to write it down, even just in a voice to text app. Another thing you can try is family quiet time. So maybe you have kids and you can establish a daily or weekly quiet hour where everyone in the house, including the kids, does a quiet activity. And you can use this time for uninterrupted writing. Or you could even invite your kids to do writing with you and invite them to brainstorm with you. And even better if they're like 5 years old or under, because they have like genius level creativity and can probably help you with some plot holes. And finally, join a writing group or create a writing group where you can meet virtually or in person for short writing sessions or writing sprints. And this is going to help so much with your accountability and your motivation. This is something that I invite everyone here to do, because if you're here, you are probably part of the Patreon community, in which case you have access to my Discord server, which is a community of over 1,000 vibrant, amazing writers who are in there every day, cheering each other on, doing writing sprints. So definitely check out the Discord community. I think you'll love it. And we'll just give you that extra level of, that extra layer of accountability. Last but not least, I want you to adopt this creed, the writer's creed, this mindset for the next month or throughout the whole process of writing this book. Whether you have to put this on your computer background or a sticky note, print it out, remind yourself of this. Say it every day if you can. I am a writer and my story matters. Every word I put down is a step toward making my author dreams come true and touching the lives of others in ways I can't yet imagine. Even on the hard days, when time feels scarce and the world pulls me in every direction, I will honor my craft. I commit to my vision because my words have power to inspire, to heal, to provoke thought, and to change the world. I trust that one day the impact of my story will ripple far beyond me. Today, I choose to write. And if that doesn't empower you and motivate you, I don't know what will. This is just something that puts into words everything that I try to remind myself of when I sit down to write, especially if I'm having an off day or just everything seems to be pulling at my attention. It's important to focus and to remember the reason why. And you can even add to this creed, add your own reasons for writing, your own reasons for showing up, but remind yourself of why you're doing it and why it matters to you. Because at the end of the day, that is going to motivate you better than anything else will.
I hope you got a lot of value out of that training and took lots of notes. Most of all, I hope you feel empowered to get those ideas out of your head and onto the page. If you need a little extra boost of motivation and accountability, again, I invite you to join Novel November. It's going to be epic. 30 days of showing up for our creativity, connecting with other writers, and getting valuable insights from so many amazing voices in the writing world. Again, it's totally free, so click the link below to join the challenge and start watching some of the workshops and live events that are happening in the NovNov interface right now, leading up to November. So there's some awesome Preptober events happening in there, so the sooner you join, the sooner you can get in on all of that good stuff there for you. If you want more live trainings like this one, I highly recommend checking out my Patreon community. That's where I host my live trainings every single month, tackling every subject under the sun about writing, from character creation to writing romance to editing to publishing and so much more. So I think you would love it over there. I have an archive vault of over 40 live trainings in the Patreon community, and you can find that at patreon.com/AbbyEmmons. And if you're feeling pretty confident in your story, but you have no idea how you're going to accomplish writing 50,000 words in 30 days because you just feel like there aren't enough hours in the day, then you need to watch this video where I break down my lifestyle and writing hacks for writing faster first drafts without rushing yourself. I will see you over there, and until then, happy writing, and as always, rock on. Shh.